This is the first of two videos that I'm going to make to go over some of the data management features on MyFlightbook, specifically focused on manufacturers, models, and aircraft. I've already done a video on administration of airports. I probably spend most of my data management time, which is not a lot of time, but most of the data management time on these three areas because they are sort of the beating heart of MyFlightbook's data. The trade-off is, of course, that I have a massive set of manufacturers, models, and aircraft throughout the world. The trade-off is that there's a little bit of data curation required. And so today I'm going to go through what that is. In this video, I'm going to focus on manufacturers and models. And in the next video, I'm going to focus on aircraft because that is sort of a topic all by itself. So let me start with what happens when somebody creates a new manufacturer on the website. They do that if they want as part of the process of creating a new aircraft model. And an email gets sent to all of the site admins who have data privileges on the website. So here I've got a fake user. I set this up today. It's actually based on a real one that happened the other day. So it says new manufacturer. It has the name of the manufacturer, Sportavia Putzer, the username, the internal username of the user who created it, and their email address and optionally name if it's provided. This is obviously made up for privacy. So let me show what I do in response to this. If anything, I will go to admin manufacturers, and the admin tab only appears if you have data privileges. And here we are on the manufacturers page. And you can do everything you need to do with manufacturers here. There's really two sections. There's one that looks for duplicate manufacturers, and the next one that lets you manage existing manufacturers. And there's a ton of them in the system. Got like 2,000, something like that in the system. So here it's identified that there are two manufacturers named Adam. Generally, this doesn't happen. If somebody tries to create a manufacturer that already exists with the same name, it'll just reuse the existing one. But it can happen if there's an admin rename or a few other things, but I'll show it anyhow. So here I've got two, excuse me, manufacturers named Adam. These are the internal database IDs of them, and I can consolidate them by picking one of them to keep and one of them to kill. And if I say I'm going to keep 2039 and I'm going to kill 1484, for example, then I can click on preview and it'll show me all the models that are going to be mapped. And here we see, since I said I'm going to kill 1484, it's going to say manufacturer 1484 will be deleted, and the following models will be mapped from 1484 to 2039. And here's the details of those models. And if I say delete duplicate manufacturer, it's just going to map those from one manufacturer to the other. And you can see that I changed the manufacturer on the existing model, and I then deleted the model. So you can see exactly what happened. You almost never need to do anything with duplicates. The more interesting area is the second area here where it has existing manufacturers. I have a tool I can just add a manufacturer if I need to. I almost never do that. And then below here, I have the database ID of the manufacturer. Main thing I would use that for is if I want to find the one very quickly that was just created, I'll click this to sort and then sort again, because the most recently created one will have the highest database ID. I can see the manufacturer and I can click on that to sort on that as well. Let me come back to restriction, and I can see the number of models per manufacturer. And that might be one of the most common things I do is I'll click on number of manufacturers and I can see, oh, look, this one got created several days ago. Nobody bothered creating a model with it. It's Acme Aircraft Inc. I did that for the demo. And I can just say, okay, that's just clutter at this point. I'm going to delete it. And now it's gone. It's safe to hit delete on something that has models. It just silently fails. And so that can help keep the database clean. But probably the most interesting thing here is that you'll see the restriction column where most of these say any, and some of them say simulator only, and there's a few that say simulator or generic. And the idea is that a manufacturer like Boeing can be anything. You can have an actual flying machine, registered tail number, and all that. That as a real aircraft that's a Boeing. You can have a simulator of a Boeing aircraft, and you can have an anonymous, say, an anonymous Boeing 737. An airline pilot might use that if they're flying multiple 737s a week, and they don't want to have a separate tail number for each one. But different models may not be suitable for all of those. If I hit edit here, I can see that a given manufacturer, if they only make Sims, then I will mark them as Sims. So Frasca, Redbird, those are in the systems as manufacturers. They do not make flying machines, so they are marked as simulator only. You can't make a registered tail number flying machine based on a Frasca or a Redbird, nor can you make a generic real aircraft flying machine. The main examples where you can use sim or generic but not real would be things like the built-in manufacturer named generic, which is used for a single-engine land airplane or a multi-engine land turbine airplane. You can have a sim based on that. You can have an anonymous aircraft or a generic aircraft based on that, but you can't have a registered flying machine, November 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because November 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is not made by generic. And so the idea is that this restriction will carry on to the model as well. So if you try and create a model based on Redbird or based on Frasca, it will inherit these restrictions. And so that way you can't create an aircraft, a registered flying machine aircraft based on Redbird or Frasca. That's kind of it for manufacturers. They're pretty simple, pretty straightforward. The main other thing that you might do is look at spelling, spacing, things like here. You can see it's a little small, but you can see if it's using Latin characters or if it needs to use additional characters. So you can see on this one, it's using an Eastern European, I don't even know what letter that is, for over the C. You look for consistency. Sometimes people will create the manufacturer with all capital letters, and so you might want to change that. And you can do that by doing update and delete. So let's go back to email. The next kind of email that I will get is somebody created a model. And again, it includes, and here it has the bogus username here, but I might need that username to look them up so that I can contact them or see how they're using it and try and figure out information if I need more. And then it has the information about the aircraft that they created. Here it's a Sportavia Putzer RF5. It's a glider. It's marked as a motor glider. It's a tail wheel. It's retract. I apologize. This is an admin tool, so it's not all pretty here. You'll notice it also says piston. Glider. Gliders are piston in the system because I got to give them something, even though mostly they have no engine. But of course, this one does have an engine because it's a motor glider. And that immediately raises questions to me about, is this properly a motor glider? Is it properly a glider? Is it properly a single engine land airplane? And it's got a link to the aircraft, to the model, so that I can edit it. And if I click that, it loads it up. I have a link here where I can view the individual aircraft that are tied to this model, and that's really useful because I might be able to look it up and see if the user assigned it to the correct model, or maybe it's correctly assigned to a different model that already exists in the system. Or I can click on the little pencil here, and I can take a look at all of the details for the aircraft. In this case, it's pretty simple. I'm looking at the manufacturer, the model ID, making sure that it's consistent. Sometimes, is there a hyphen in the model ID that belongs there? Is there a marketing name? By marketing name, I'm talking about things like Skyhawk for a 172. Did they put that in the model ID when it properly belongs in the marketing name? Is a type rating required to fly this? And actually, let me give a different example. If I actually change this to decide that this should have properly been a single engine land airplane, we can see that there's also potentially an FAA or ICAO designation. And if I click on lookup, that will actually take me over to the ICAO website. And this is a really great tool. So if I look up, what was it? It was a Sportavia Putzer and RF5. So I'm just going to put RF5, and I can see actually, look, it might need a hyphen there. There we are, Fournier or Sportavia Putzer RF5. So that should have a hyphen in it. And it has a type designation, an ICAO type designation of RF5. So I would put that into the ICAO designation. I would say RF5 here. And that should be RF with a hyphen. So it's that kind of cleanup that I'll often do. Now, this kind of an airplane does not require a type rating, so I'm going to leave the type rating blank. But if you click on look up type ratings, it'll bring up the PDF of the current designation for from the FAA for type ratings. And so you can see here, for example, Airbus A340 series gets a type rating of A-340. And so that's not really technically a type rating on the model per se. It's a type rating that you have to hold on your certificate in order to be legal to fly that model of aircraft. The hyphenation matters. And so if it were the case that this needed a type rating, I would want to put that here. For anything that doesn't require a type rating to fly, typically small aircraft, not piston aircraft, you leave that blank. And there are features. You want to make sure that these all got identified correctly. Is it a retract? Does it have flaps? Things like that. And all of this is, of course, visible to users and admins as well. But the piece here that is not visible unless you're an admin is here, where you can designate that this is restricted to be SIM only or anonymous only. So that might be inherited from the manufacturer. If it was a Redbird, it will be only SIM. But sometimes people may create a Boeing 737 SIM. And generally I frown on that, but there are occasions where I'll allow that, and so I will mark that as SIM only. Or they will create a Cessna 400, 420 family model. So it's Cessna makes real airplanes, but it's multiple models, and so you can only use anonymous aircraft with that. And so I can update the models restriction here using that. So that is managing new models. And so again, I'm looking for consistency in the model ID. I want to make sure that everything gets an ICAO ID. Gliders generally don't get ICAO IDs. That's why when I pulled this up and it was a glider, the ICAO field disappeared. But of course, gliders can be marked as motor gliders. So you're just looking for consistency with all of that. And you're also looking to see, geez, should this have been an existing model? And you can look up additional models using the models page and see if there's something that's a better fit. Similarly, the third piece of email that I will get is a model updated email. And you can see again here, someone changed it from an RF5 Fournier piston motor glider, and here they added the RC5. And it's the exact same process. I can then go and view the model and edit the model as appropriate. And I may need to view the aircraft and decide if this aircraft is properly assigned to a different existing model. So then the main other thing for models is, under the admin tab again, is the models page. And there's a bunch going on here. Sorry, wrong page. I did that on, I want to do that on the demo site here. Okay, so there are three main sections to this page as well. The first is makes and models that should be sims. So here is, for example, if someone created a model under a real aircraft, then it's not under a real manufacturer, then it's not flagged as being sim only. But perhaps that model got edited later to be a Frasca or a Redbird or something like that. So you want to make sure that that gets marked as sim only. Again, I apologize for the titles here. It's kind of ugly, but it's an admin tool. And so if I have a model that should be flagged as sim only, it'll show up here, and I can click on edit, and it will take me to the page where I can edit it and assign the sim restriction that it should have. The next section here is orphaned models. So these are models that exist, but there are no aircraft in the system tied to that model. And generally, if things are in the system for more than a few days and no one's created an aircraft, then I treat it as clutter. And you can basically ignore all these different columns. And so here I have a sample manufacturer, sample new model. I can just hit delete. And now because I deleted a model, I may have in fact orphaned a manufacturer, and so I may want to then go and delete that manufacturer as well. I can review type designations. Remember, I said all the type-rated aircraft need, or the aircraft that require a type rating to fly them, need to have very consistent naming. Otherwise, currency computations get messed up. For example, the entire Boeing 737 family requires a B-737 type rating to fly across a whole variety of 737 models, from the MAX to the next gen to the older generations and so forth. So if I click on refresh, these are all the aircraft in the system that have a required type name on them. And I can see what that required type name is and just review them to make sure that the hyphenation is consistent, the title is all consistent. And you can see all these different models, F-16, F-16B, F-16C, they all require an F-16 type rating to fly. And I can click on the model ID to view the model in more detail, or I can just click edit, and I can clean up the type name if it needs to be cleaned up. So let me go to the next section, and the next section is looking for potential duplicate models. So this is going to look at all the models that seem to be identical, but maybe not, and then I can make a judgment call about whether or not they really should be consolidated. So for example, here are two Stinsons. There's a 108-2 and another 108-2, and they're identical in their ICAO family. They're identical in their CAT class. They're identical in their model attributes. Just one of these has a station wagon designation and the other one does not. Excuse me. I can view the aircraft, and if they look fine, super. I can leave them as they are. Here's the Commander and the Rockwell, both under 112 TC. So this list can actually grow reasonably long, partly because there's a lot of sims in it. A lot of things where the same aircraft is made by slightly different manufacturers. I can trim the list a little bit by excluding sims. from it, and then it's just a somewhat smaller list. But then if I want to consolidate two models, it's the same process as what I demonstrated for manufacturers. I pick the model I want to keep, and then the model I want to kill. And if I pick different models and click preview, it's going to say these don't appear to be duplicates. But if I pick the ones that actually do that are the same model and different model IDs, then when I click preview, it's going to show me, here's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to remap all of these different aircraft. And if that all looks good, then I can hit delete duplicate make, and it will map all of the aircraft from this model to this model, and then delete this model. And I'm not going to do that because if those models aren't exactly the same, notifications will in fact go out to each of those users. So you want to make sure that you're confident that it's the right change to make. And that's just about it. The one other thing that's important on a model update to make sure is that sometimes people get a little bit confused about model versus aircraft, and you want to make sure that they're not they're not editing the model when they mean to be editing a specific aircraft. Because if you change the Cessna 172 definition to be a Piper 28, every Cessna 172 in the system now becomes a Piper PA-28. So you don't want that. You want to edit an individual aircraft. Changing it back fixes everything because all of that is computed in real time. It doesn't actually change the aircraft per se. It changes what the aircraft is tied to. Fortunately, that doesn't happen very often. More often, people will create a model for a very specific sim, ID number 2176. And that shouldn't be its own model. That should just be, it's a Redbird sim emulating some kind of an aircraft. And so I'll usually reach out to the pilot and tell them what I'm doing, and I'll map them to I'll put them in the correct sim and delete the model that they created, because you don't want to have to create a model for each individual simulator. That would just explode the number of models in the system. In my next video, I'm going to talk about managing aircraft, and that's a meatier topic and will be an entire video. Thanks.